Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. We talk about anything and everything that has to do with wedding ceremonies. My name is Clint and with me is a gentleman that has a myriad of experience across the wedding ceremony spectrum, the one and only JP Reynolds.
Clint, I love how you say that word.
Which one?
Well, I, coming from the Bronx, simply say myriad, but I like that little continental twist you gave to it. Oh, gee, was that a clue for what we may be talking about today? But anyway, good to be with you.
Good to be with you as always. For those of you joining us for the first time, the reason this podcast exists is because JP and I are both wedding officiants, non-denominational. We've been doing it for a long time. And anybody who's in the industry knows that every single wedding ceremony is unique and has its own quirks and personalities and challenges and so on and so forth. You should also know that JP has written the book on wedding ceremonies. Books, plural, actually. They're in the Kindle store and in the Amazon store. They are about wedding ceremonies, how to do them, how to prepare for them emotionally, and all that kind of stuff. Plus, he's a communications expert. Thebusinessofconfidence.com is that website. His wedding website is jprweddings.com. Mine is just my name, Clint Huff, CLINTHUFFT.com, for all of the things that I do. JP, if we flash back to the last episode that we recorded, we had a couple of things on the horizon. We both were not sure exactly how they were going to play out. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
I had to go out of the country. I went to Portugal. That's another thing that a lot of people don't understand is that if you do any kind of a high profile wedding, you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. What I learned a long time ago is that means you can't talk about it leading up to the event. But as soon as it becomes public, then you can say pretty much whatever you want.
Well, no, oh, Clint, no, that's not what it means.
It does not mean that.
No. A non-disclosure agreement means you are not going to talk about it, period.
Well, here's the thing. The very first time I signed an NDA, there were some people, I don't know, I had a meeting with the producers and the production company and the event planners and so on. And there were some people there that I assumed were
Right.
lawyers.
Yeah.
And I said, how does this work? I've never done this before. And they said, well, you can't talk about anything. I said, that's fine. I said, but forever? And they said, well, if it becomes public knowledge, then okay.
Right. Right.
So I guess that's what I meant. So like if they release like all kinds of media and all kinds of things were put out into the public, unless the NDA says specifically never, ever, ever, then that's fine. And there are certain things where
Yeah.
I've done
Okay.
where
Fair enough. Yes.
there are certain
Yeah.
things I've done where I didn't sign an NDA, but I felt out of respect to the couple and to, I think that part of the things that I bring to the table when somebody comes to me for any kind of a high profile wedding is the fact that I keep my mouth shut. You know what I mean? There are certain things where I've talked to my family about certain things, but I don't talk
Right.
publicly about, what the event was about and all the details. Then there are other
Right.
times where it becomes public knowledge and somebody will say, well, what do you think? And, then I'll go from there. This
Right.
particular thing, when I went to Portugal, was not like that at all. So the couple were going to do like a kind of a legal wedding type of a deal. And then
Mhm.
they want to have a big, big wedding in a year. That's going to be in the south of France. The event planner reached out to me. This is a little recap for those of you who didn't hear that episode. The event planner reached out to me and said, okay, here's the deal. They live in Portugal, but the bride is from Germany. The groom is from France. So this is obviously a destination wedding. And what they want to do is because they're pretty much just going to do like the legal part, just very short and sweet. They want to have a lot of fun. And they thought it would be fun if they had their friends and family tell stories about them. So you get a real understanding of who are the people who fell in love and why did they fall in love and that sort of thing. And so she sent me an email and I responded, just letting my imagination go, not thinking I was going to be involved at all. And I said, oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. You could do this, you could do that, and be mindful of who you pick as the officiant, because make sure they don't draw any attention to themselves and everything is focused on the couple. That would be great. And they also said, well, there's people speaking different languages and we might have translators. I said, that's great. Do whatever, is going to bring you the most joy. Then the event planner requested an online meeting. So I met with the bride and the groom and the bride's mom. She was in Germany and the bride and groom were in Portugal, and the event planner was in Malibu and I was here in Los Angeles. So we kicked some ideas around and I just said, this sounds like a lot of fun. And really, that's all it was. I just thought this is just a meeting and I'm doing it on behalf of the event planner. And it sounds like fun to participate in the idea. What do they call that? The brainstorming of this.
Yep.
And I didn't think anything else of it. And I said, thank you very much. And congratulations to the mom on your daughter finding the man that she wants to marry. And I think that's great. We hang up, and 10 minutes later, the event planner texts me and says, you're hired. I guess I'm going to Portugal. Here's the thing. It was a constantly moving landscape because the bride gave my email address to all of the friends and family who wanted to tell a story. I received emails from over 20 people, and the
Wow.
stories were wonderful. Everything from members of their individual families, their dads both wrote something, and then friends and family and all that kind of stuff. They all sent me all these emails of these wonderful stories.
Mm.
And I thought this is great. And I what I imagined was during our first conversation that I would have a microphone that would float around, and maybe I'd be running around with the microphone and just, kind of say, and the next story is from so and so. And I thought, what I need to do is tell them exactly what part of this story we want to share. No more than 3 minutes each. Well, I got so many of them. And then somebody at some point along the lines, as we're preparing, and remember, this is only about 6 weeks out that this whole thing started. How long do you think it'll last? I said, well, with all the stories that we have, if we can keep them to 3 minutes, it's going to be at least 45 minutes to an hour long. Then the event planner says, oh no, the couple's freaking out. They only want it to be 20 minutes. And that was kind of what happened on more than one occasion. The couple's freaking out. And so X, Y, and Z. So I said, okay, that's fine. Not everybody's story is going to be shared. And then I started getting emails from the bride saying, my friends don't know what's happening and they're getting really nervous. Like, when will they talk? What will they say? And I'm thinking, it really isn't that complicated. Before we start the service, I'm going to say, you're number one, you're number two, you're number three, and I'll figure out where they are. And I'll just guide the whole thing. Because as I tell everybody on the wedding day, I am Captain Obvious. They requested another video meeting the day that I arrived in Lisbon. And I realized that my room wasn't going to be ready. So I just took the meeting in the airport. And the Wi-Fi was pretty good. And the way I began the meeting was to the bride, okay, just tell me what you want. And then she said, well, my friends are worried and nervous. I said, that's okay. What do you really want? She says, well, I always thought that you were just going to tell the stories. And in my head, I'm thinking, that's perfect. That's perfect, because now we don't have as many moving parts. I can pick and choose what I think is really entertaining. And I said, okay, so just as a recap, nobody else really is going to talk except for me. Yeah, except for the bride had a man of honor and the groom had a man of honor. What do you call it? Best man. The bride's man of honor was from Germany and the groom's best man was from France. And so they thought originally that it'd be kind of funny if somebody said something in French and then somebody who spoke German translated it. And because, languages don't always exactly go, and they thought that'd be funny. And I said, sure, I'll roll with that. Anything that was sent to me in another language, it was great. I just gave it to ChatGPT and said, translate this into English. So I knew what was going on. So then when she said, I thought you were just going to be the one to talk. Great. Okay, that's fine. We have 20 minutes. The dads are going to go first. The bride's dad, his wife told me straight up, he's German and he is going to do whatever he feels like he's going to do. You can't tell him what to do. He's going to do whatever he wants. And I said, that's fine. I get that all taken care of. I organize like a script. And then I realize, okay, then I need to delete this and I need to delete that. And I had a meeting after that original meeting. The very next day, I had an in-person meeting with the best man and the man of honor. A little warning sign, though, the man of honor said to me, we're going to have to make this funny. We're going to need to include some punchlines. And in my head, when somebody who doesn't do this for a living, who is not a professional comedian or a writer, says, we're going to inject some punchlines, I know he's an amateur. I immediately thought to myself, yeah, you can try that, but I don't think it's going to be funny. I didn't say that to him. I just said, yeah, do whatever you want. They got a better sense of exactly how it's going to play out. So I said, you're going to be on either side of me. When we get to your part, you get to say your part. If something needs to be translated, then you're going to do that. And so we had it all arranged and it was great. We had 3 microphones. It was at the beach. It was in the sand. It was just beautiful at this wonderful beach club. Then we begin.
Just let me ask Clint just a couple of questions. How many guests?
About 60, 65, 60.
Okay, so it was intimate. All right, yeah.
Right. But not as intimate as when we say intimate, when you and I work intimate, I don't know. I'm thinking of the ballpark of like 20, 30 at the most. So this was actually could have been a regular wedding, considering that it was 60 people. I said to them, the dads are going to talk however they want to talk. And whatever time is left over, I'll make that work. So we hit the 20-minute mark. That's what I was thinking. By the time the 2 dads got done, including the translation of the French one, 15 minutes had gone by. So if I was going to keep to the 20-minute thing, I only had 5 minutes to do everything. And that includes these 2 guys saying their parts. But there was other stuff that had been sent to me that was gold. I said, we have to. So I just thought, okay, I'll abbreviate, I'll condense, but we're going to make this what the bride and groom originally wanted. And that is, these great stories. So
Because they were doing vows also. Yes? No?
at the very end, all they wanted was to answer the I do question, which they'd
Ah,
said together. Out of all the people in the world, you've chosen each other to get married, something along those lines. If so, say we do. And they both said we do. Then all they did was exchange rings. And
mm,
they did a repeat after me with the exchange of the rings. That was it.
mm.
And then I introduced him as Mr. and Mrs. his last name. That part took at the most 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, the whole thing was about the stories and all that kind of stuff. It all turned out fine. It all turned out fine. Nobody said how long nobody got back to me with it took too long because every part of it was entertaining once we got past the dads. The one thing that I thought was unfortunate, the man of honor of the bride, when I got back to him by email, I love this part of your story and I love this part of your story because it dealt directly with the bride and because they grew up together. And the rest of it, he talked about the life that they had spent together, knowing each other for their entire lives. And his favorite memories of the two of them sitting in the ocean waiting for a wave. And I thought that's not where this story needs to be told because this space is for the bride and groom specifically,
Mhm.
not about you and your relationship with the bride. Well, when I turned it over to him, he read verbatim the email that he had sent me, which was all about him and the bride. And my heart went out to him because it was obvious to me he was in love with this woman and had been for years and years and years.
Oh,
Nobody said that to me. He didn't confess that to me, but it's kind of like you read between the lines. And the fact that it was all about him talking directly to her and his best memories of his life are being with her.
oh,
And by the
oh.
and by the way, this is the guy that said punchlines, and there were no punchlines. He was kind of wrapped up in his own thing. The best part about something like that is that it doesn't take very long for it to be done. And then it's my job to direct all the attention
Oh,
back onto
and
the bride and
it's
groom. And
never it's never over.
oh, this guy, this poor
It's
guy.
never over, Clint. Why do I see Netflix here? My God, I see this is like episode one of like
Lifetime,
eight.
lifetime.
I mean, it
But
is very poignant, very poignant. Yeah, my God.
there were a couple of things that the best man from France, he translated what the father of the groom said. It turned out his accent was so thick, even though it was in English, I don't think it was really clear. And then he told his story. I told him specifically, tell this story and this story because they're great. And he did, and it worked out really well. But I realized that if I had spoken more, because I'm a professional, everybody spoke English, and to be able to speak clearly in English benefited the event. But other than that, it turned out great. I didn't really see that much of Lisbon because the way I work, whenever I do an event that's someplace else, is I'm usually preparing for the event in my hotel room. And then I go to the event and do the event. And then I go back to my hotel room and get ready to get on the plane. So this was very much like that because of all the moving landscape and that kind of stuff. Ultimately, the bride and groom were very happy. And I promised them when the event was over, I was going to send them all of the emails that I had received from all their friends and family
Oh,
so they would be able to see all of the stories in their totality and they were going to print it out and make a book out of it. And it was very cool. There's one last little tag on the story. It's weird because I had to fly from Lisbon to come home, from Lisbon to Paris and then Paris to LA. The flight from Paris to LA was 11 hours long. And even though there was all kinds of amenities and entertainment and all that kind of stuff, when I was on the plane, I thought, I don't know if I really want to do this again. You know what I mean? I don't know if I want to be a destination person. But wouldn't you know it? As soon as I walk into my house, I'm thinking that was awesome. I want to do that again. I don't know, but I it fell in my lap as
I thought where you were going was that you were on the plane and somebody walked up to you and said, and you got into a conversation. They said, oh, so what business trip or whatever. You said, oh, I just officiated a wedding. And they said, oh, I'm getting married in Rome next year. I need an officiant.
well. There is a possibility because the event planner said that she was also going to do the big wedding in the south of France in a year. And I said, that's fantastic. And I said something along the lines of, boy, that would be really cool. And she said
Yeah,
something along the lines of, well, they really like you.
right.
I haven't gotten any notice yet. I don't know what the deal is, but that'd be really
Yeah.
cool. And that's my
That
story.
is delightful. That is delightful. Delightful. Yeah.
It just reinforces what we've talked about many times over the last few episodes is how diverse and nuanced our job as a wedding officiant can become. Are we a master of ceremonies? Are
Right.
we a therapist? Are we a logistics expert? all the things that a really good wedding officiant takes into consideration, whether the talent is called upon or it isn't, just to be aware of it all and have it ready just in case is, I think, a part of our job, in my opinion.
And all of that is true because it begins with an understanding and a conviction that what we want to do is create a ceremony that honors the reality of the couple, respects and embodies their wishes. And so in my initial conversation with the couple, very quickly, I will, before I talk about the ceremony, I will ask, so is there anything you know you do want, anything you know you don't want? Anything that you've seen you thought was lovely or that you saw and you thought, OMG, never at my wedding? And that really has to be the guiding question. And if that question in whatever shape or form is not asked, it really becomes the officiant's ceremony and not the couple's.
That's a very good point. I learned that lesson when I was working for a DJ company because there was a guy that I really respected. He was very good at what he did. And he said that the initial meeting with every single client, now he approached it from the entertainment for the reception and that sort of thing. But his very first question is, tell me what you don't want, because he thought that was way more important, because it's the things that you don't want that you'll remember forever if they happen. You know what I mean? And so I
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
with you. Every single conversation begins, tell me what you want, tell me what you don't want, tell me if anybody's
right,
given you any grief, and you have different ways of saying that. Yeah, but it's what they
right.
don't want that needs to be on the table like immediately. And sometimes
Yes.
it'll be generalities, and I let them get it all out of their system. I thinking to myself, that's not an issue anyway, but I'm glad that you said it out loud and that you know that I
Yeah.
heard it.
The reason why that's important is because that is where a couple needs to be reassured you don't have to worry. That is not something that I do. That is not something I would ever dream of doing. That is something that I will respect. Once any of those lurking fears, and oftentimes their concerns, their fears are only half formed in their head. When we ask that question, what is it you want? What is it that you don't want? In that conversation, they're trying to articulate what the answer is. Once we reassure them that they're being heard, then the conversation can truly flow.
I have a theory about humanity in general because we're social beings and we're really concerned about what other people think. That's the bottom line. So here in the black and white movies way back when of Laurel and Hardy, the thing that got the most laughs is when they would fall down or hurt themselves or whatever. And that seems to be a style of humor that has consistently been displayed. And if you look at little kids, if you pretend to fall over, they'll just start cracking up. Okay, so here we have the internet, and the thing that gets the most shares and hits and all the clicks and all that stuff are the fails, including wedding ceremonies and weddings and that sort of thing. And so it's normal for a couple to, knowing that all that is out there, please, 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 I don't want to become a meme. I don't want to become the failure story. And
Right.
so you're right. If we can assure them right off the bat, no, 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 no,
Right.
no. We're going to give you great memories of your wedding day.
Anybody who provides a service, that is at the core of what they do, to reassure the customer, the client, that they are in the hands of someone who is going to understand what is it they want and what is it they don't want.
You hope. I had a long conversation with one of the respected people in the wedding industry from the business side. His name is Alan Berg, and he speaks every year at the wedding MBA conference, and he really is brilliant. And I went on his podcast, and all we did was talk about what it is to be a professional in the wedding industry. There's a lot of different definitions of the word professional, but thinking of the client first, I think, is job number one, or at the top of the list of what does it take to be a professional. That's one of the reasons why you and I have been having these conversations for 361 episodes, because we both approach this basically the same way. We have different ways and styles and formats, but we still approach it with that single goal in mind: is what can I do to make sure that you're really happy? Well, that's the end of that.
In our next episode, I will tell a story of a couple, in some respects, are the embodiment of this principle that we just talked about,
Oh,
of of what happens when you listen to a couple.
that's excellent. I'm going to leave it at that. Oh my gosh, what a great teaser. Okay, JP, tell everybody how they get in touch with you.
Very simple. jprweddings.com. Everything is there.
Brilliant. And also remember that he is a communications expert. Thebusinessofconfidence.com is that website. And his wedding books are in the Amazon store and in the Kindle store on Amazon, all about wedding ceremonies, how to do them, and also how to prepare for them. We want to thank the incredible musicians that play our theme music on the audio side, the Da Capo Players, DACAPO Players.com. Also, if you want to go to my website, it's just my name, Clint Huff, CLINTHUFFT.com for all of the things that I do. That's it for this episode of the Wedding Ceremony Podcast. This is Clint, and on behalf of JP, we will see you next time.